Well, we're getting to the end of August and taking a look at the news headlines. Flooding in Kentucky. Yeah, that's definitely big news. We go all the way back to Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. A few patches of storms move across the area. Big MCS up near Cincinnati breaks up, but plenty of cells move across. Wednesday afternoon, here comes another cluster overnight, Wednesday into Thursday. And these cells are training. One cell or after the other moves into that area. Stratiform precip finally breaks up Thursday morning. A little bit of a break Thursday, but here comes more. Last night, another MCS coming in from the west. It just does not stop. Well, looks like we have a break right now, but down to the south, more storms moving through Tennessee into the Carolinas. And there's the radar-derived precipitation, Kentucky right in here, Virginia off to the right, and here's West Virginia. So this is the main area of concern. Lots of red and even a few magenta colors indicating about 8 to maybe 12 inches of rain. And that's over the past 7 days. And if we go back to that weather map on Wednesday, high dew points in the 70s, and even a 75 reading there. Front coming in from the west, and looking at the thickness contours, that's indicating jet stream activity not too far away, helping to organize some of that convection. Plenty of problems with heat in the western U.S. These are the maximum temperatures yesterday. 100-degree readings from Las Vegas up to the Great Basin region, and that 100-degree isotherm goes all the way into Idaho, into Washington, and even into British Columbia. So it goes as far north as the Fraser River Valley, and then back down into California. And you can see that around Mount Shasta, 111, maybe 114 at Redding, 110 at Pasco, 109 at Omak, and 102 up there in British Columbia. And even more significantly, Vancouver, 92, and 92 as well at Seattle, 97 at Portland. So that's very toasty conditions, and those extend as far north as Prince George, 90s up in that region, and then we transition into the polar air mass further north. In Pendleton, Oregon, the temperature reached 107 yesterday. The Weather Service attempted to fry an egg on the pavement. The results, not really all that appetizing. Looking at the weather map this afternoon, it is another hot one in the western U.S. At the time we did this map, it was about 11:30 Pacific time, already into the mid-90s in the deserts of Washington. The monsoon has backed off a little bit. Still quite a bit of it in the Sierra Madre Occidental. And that front that helped to sustain the convection in Kentucky has pushed on off to the south, approaching Atlanta. It has pushed through Little Rock and Oklahoma City, and generating quite a bit of showers and rain. To the north of that front, unseasonably cool, surprisingly seeing only 64 this afternoon in southwestern Kansas, and a rather cool 68 at Alva, and usually they are the hot spot. Very common to see 108 or 110 degrees during the summer months. The sea breeze getting active in southeast Texas and Louisiana, coming inland and producing thunderstorm activity through that region. The cold front moving through the northeastern U.S., clearing out the moisture and the heat, but still remaining rather warm at New York, just ahead of that front, and in Boston, where we have 89 at this hour. Taking a look up there in Alaska and Canada, the warm sector covering British Columbia once again, so it's going to be another hot day, and very likely will stay that way through the weekend. But up to the north, new polar high moving south out of the Northwest Territories, temperatures only in the 50s and 60s. And Alaska, there we go, the cold temperatures up north of the Brooks Range coming into the Mackenzie River Basin. And in the Alaskan interior, only 50s. This is rather cool weather. And cold weather coming down south as well from Nunavut into the Canadian prairies. And in eastern Canada and the Maritimes, I don't think we have any viewers out there. Kind of a soggy day there with 60s and widespread rain, even some thunderstorms out around Montreal and Quebec City. But that dry, cold air will be filtering in, some cold core convection still traversing Ottawa, North Bay, but I think that may be out of the area by tomorrow. Let's take a quick look how we're doing with temperatures. These are the forecast National Weather Service highs for today. Expecting 109 there at Pendleton, 102 at Spokane, and 102 all the way down through the deserts of Oregon. As you can see, not much change for tomorrow. Still warm in the Pacific Northwest. Expecting 110 there at Medford, breaking the record for the date. More of the same for Sunday. Pasco coming up to 111, and a little bit of spread of that heat into Montana with 101 at Great Falls. For Monday, we definitely see that heat spreading into Montana, 104 at Glasgow. For Tuesday, we see an eastward progression into the high plains. That's indicating that this heat wave is associated with upper level ridging. So that ridging is being transported to the east. So there's a good chance by midweek we should see that in the Great Lakes region. Wednesday, day 5, that's getting pretty far out there, but some indications of hot temperatures, expecting 98 there at Minneapolis, and 102 showing up there at San Antonio. Then for Thursday, just based on extrapolation, I would be a little bit concerned about this area. Maybe some above normal temperatures. Certainly, that's being forecast around New York City. And the heat coming up once again around San Antonio with 102 at San Antonio and 104 at Del Rio. Short-term hazards really nailing that heat in the northwestern U.S. and flood risks expected through much of the southwestern U.S. So apparently the monsoon is not done with that part of the country. Flood watches and warnings continuing in the Appalachians, that affected region of Kentucky as well, and a smattering of severe thunderstorm watches and heat advisories all the way from the Carolinas into Louisiana. So the monsoon activity at this hour does not really look all that extensive. Most of what we see on here is mid and upper level debris cloud. For example, this right there, all of this is mid and upper level cloud field. The true convection, that's going to be this stuff out here, up in the painted desert region, along the western Mogollon Rim, and out around Alamogordo, Ruidoso, and around Silver City. But with those flood watches in effect, very likely we're going to see much more extensive convection by late afternoon. And there's the high-resolution rapid refresh, breaking out quite a bit of convection in central Nevada and southwestern Utah, quite a bit down the Mogollon Rim into the Kingman area, and as well near Casa Grande and Ajo. Then by late evening, some residual convection all the way from Gallup along Interstate 40 and possibly out into the deserts of California. This time of year, we've got to repeatedly check that NHC forecast because this is when things start getting busy. Fortunately, it's a weak start to the 2022 hurricane season. That's not to say things aren't busy in the Pacific. Typically, these storms, we don't pay too much attention to them because they typically move to the west-northwest. On rare occasion, they will move into the San Diego area and weaken. Other times, they will beach themselves in the Gulf of California area or northwest Mexico, and that can drive a lot of moisture into the southwestern U.S. and Texas. Don't see anything like that right now. And the only other thing that we watch for is the approach of any of these storms into Hawaii, which is rare as well. The NHC forecast only goes for 5 days, so we need to check the GFS and see what that's doing. Well-defined Bermuda high, there it is, and strong trade winds blowing through the Caribbean. Don't see any organization. And let's see, that takes us all the way into the 6th and 7th. Really not much of anything going on. So I think we're looking pretty clear through the entire period. And we'll check in as well with the European model. Same thing. Just strong trade winds. Doesn't rule out the chance of blowing in a tropical depression or a moisture plume into the Western Gulf, but I think right now that would be about it. Anything beyond August 5th through August 8th is not going to be very clear at this point. We'll check back in on that next week and see if there's any hazards approaching. The weather over the next 10 days will be dominated mostly by the upper level conditions. Outgoing polar front jet in the northeastern U.S. that's associated with that other system that is moving on off out into the Atlantic. Some ridging following in. That's, let's see, that's going to be one lobe right there, another lobe here. And this is the one associated with that heat wave in the northwestern U.S. So we're going to see that progress from west to east. Don't see much indication of blocking out in the Atlantic. Of course, I don't really have a good view out there, but it looks like things are moving on. So as we go into the 31st and the 1st, Monday and Tuesday, strong ridging out there in the northern Rockies. You can see that upper level high right there across New Mexico, bringing in southerly flow into Arizona. Typically when we see that, I start looking for monsoon conditions in the southwestern deserts. So this could be a pattern conducive to that. And on the other side, weak northerly flow in Texas. Let's move on and see what happens around midweek. Bring that up to about Wednesday. And there's that ridge moving into Minnesota and about to affect the Great Lakes region. Troughing coming in from the Pacific, that's breaking up that heat wave. And up to the north, strong Hudson Bay vortex in place. Depending on how the troughs and ridges are linked up, that can drive cool air into the Midwest from time to time. Going into the weekend of the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, when is that weekend? I guess it's around the 6th. Strong ridging in Canada, so yeah, it does look warm in the Great Lakes region. Strong negative tilt trough coming into the Dakotas, very likely a front coming out of Montana and Wyoming, maybe something like that. Probably some downslope conditions there in Colorado. But most of the energy heads up into eastern Canada, so not much of a break for the U.S. In fact, looks like a strong high across the northeastern U.S., so I would expect above normal temperatures in places like Washington, D.C., Philadelphia, and New York, about a week to a week and a half from now. And that high does extend. Westward is a ridge. You can see to the south of that ridge, easterly flow, to the north of that, westerly flow. So conditions probably will remain hot across much of the southern U.S. And the very last frame, August 8th, that's how it looks right there. A stagnant weather pattern, continued hot on the East Coast, and indeterminate in the western U.S. Looks like some strong jet stream energy coming into the Pacific Northwest, but as well some upper-level ridging right there across the Four Corners region. Checking in on Big Rig Steve. He is up near South Bend, Indiana, heading for Indianapolis. This is a cold air advection zone in the wake of this cold front, which means that we've got cool air from Canada moving over relatively warmer ground, which means cold over warm, which is an unstable pattern. And there's the clouds in motion. Definite effects from Lake Michigan there. The air flows over the colder waters, cools down, becomes less unstable, and then moves over the warm ground and becomes unstable once again. And it appears there's kind of a lake breeze boundary through his area. And there it is, the cloud field from his perspective. Looks like maybe a little bit of Virga in the distance, but overall this is a relatively fair weather cumulus field. And that's about all I got for this edition of Forecast Lab. I was hoping to work in more of the educational content this week. Got kind of derailed. Things have been kind of crazy this week. I don't want to really go into all the details, but we are looking forward to a mellow weekend and maybe a better start to next week. And hopefully we can get back in on some of that educational stuff. I do appreciate your support. Many thanks to the people that make this program happen, like Ron Chalfant, Kurt Childress, Mike Lammers, Terry Taylor, RT, Jay Coley. Thank you all very much for helping us support the program. We'll see you back here on Monday, August 1st, for the supporters and Wednesday for everybody else. Hope you have a great weekend. Take care, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye.